Bookmark key 5 brings us to this cave entrance and waterfall area in the demonstration level. And here we're going to add the sounds of some birds of prey, some kites, circling around in the sky. We have a look at our sound cue for the kites. We've got 6 sounds randomly chosen, a bit of modulation on the volume, and a looping delay system. So every now and again, we're going to get a kite call sound. In our level, from the cinematics menu, we will add level sequence. We'll put that in our audio sequences folder. We'll call it kite. And this opens the sequence editor. We'll then drag and drop our kite sound cue into the viewport to create an ambient sound actor. You can see it's got quite a large attenuation because this is going to be moving around and we want to make sure that it will be heard from quite a large distance away. With that ambient sound actor selected, we'll right click and add that actor to the level sequence. And then we'll add a transform track. So this allows us to change the location of the sound, the rotation of the sound, which might be useful if you've got a cone attenuation shape, and the scale. So with a transform track selected, the first thing we'll do is establish its starting position. So we'll press enter to create these points here. By default, the track is shown in frames. So we'll just change that to seconds because that's a little bit more meaningful from an audio point of view. And you can see the default length between the green marker and the red marker here is 5 seconds. So we'll stick to that for the time being. So we'll move to a position on the timeline where we want to set our second set of markers or keys. And then I'll just switch to the overhead view because what I want to do is to create a kind of circular movement around here. So at 1.5 seconds, I want the hawks to have moved to this position here. So I've moved its position. The transform track is still selected. So when I press enter again, it will record that new position. And you can see a blue line has appeared in the viewport. And this shows us how the object will interpolate between those two positions. I'll pick a new time here and let's move the hawks over to this area. Again, pressing enter. And one more. Then at the end, I want the hawks to come back to their original starting position. So I'm going to copy this and I'm going to go to the end of my sequence here and paste those in. So now we get a loopable movement shape. We can preview looping here. So we'll press the space bar and see how that sound's going to move over time. That's maybe moving a little bit fast, but we can slow that down in a minute. We'll go back to the perspective view, select our level sequence, and we'll set it to autoplay. So when the game starts, it will start playing. We'll set it to loop indefinitely. And here the play rate, I'll slow it down a bit. So I'll set it to 0.75. This random start time can be quite useful in creating some variation in the position of the sounds. And the start offset can be useful, particularly if you're previewing longer sequences. Another thing worth mentioning is that if you are using these level sequences for more of a one-shot type sound movement rather than a loop, then you need to make sure to set the track not to automatically jump back to its default starting position, which it will do unless you right click on the transform track itself and say, when finished, keep state. So that will hold it at its final position rather than jumping back to the beginning. Okay, so going to autoplay. So we should just be able to play our level and then see and hear those hawks moving round. We'll see them by turning on the audio 3D visualize. So that still felt a little bit fast. So let's bring that playback rate down to 0.35. And then let's hear it again and perhaps solo that sound cue. So audio solo sound cue. Right. Now, because it's on a looping delay system, you'll hear it every now and again coming from different positions in space. In this instance, we've set up this level sequence to autoplay and loop, but of course you can trigger sequences to start alongside specific events. So if we had an instance where we wanted more of a one-shot type sequence, we'd make sure that we've got the level sequence selected in the viewport, open up our blueprint, create a reference to that level sequence here, and then simply drag out, and we can play using a sequence player to start that sequence and the sound's movement. We've looked at a simple example of how you can use the sequence editor to animate sound's movement through space.